From Los Angeles and Nashville, get ready to go behind the scenes with Entertainment.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Entertainment Dudes. I'm your host, Jason Crossman, Director Dude, along with my
how are you doing?
Cam Cornelius.
I'm back.
Hi, good.
We have one more interesting thing going on here. A blast,
which is
from the past.
Yes. Cue the music.
Libby O!
Hey guys, long time.
So, Cam, preface. How do we know Libby?
We know
why do
Libby.
we have her on?
We used to work together at an organization, and Libby was an intern with us. I was a director of photography. Jason was what was your title? Content director. And we used to work on videos and fun things. And Libby was one of our most amazing interns, and she has since gone on to become a host in her own right and does a lot of stuff in Nashville with the music industry and celebrities, and host of the Libby O Show. So we wanted to bring her on and talk a little bit about what she's been up to.
This mirroring situation, I always am like, where am I going? What am I doing? But yeah.
That's why when Cam and I look at each other, I go, "What do you think, Cam?" And sometimes I'll turn the wrong way.
But she was also a Villy. She's been in some of the videos and stuff outside of Villy, right?
Oh yeah, Villy, because I still have I still have the videos for it. And yeah, you know Renee. Yeah. Renee started her own podcast too, which is fascinating. I know you'll have to so she's great. So yeah, it was really fun. That was a fun day. From where you were going, what was it like to be an intern going into an organization, and did it violate what you expected, or was it more than you were expecting? And would you recommend that for anybody else who's like, I want to get into business?
I think an internship is important for college in general. So for me, college was played a massive role in what I ended up deciding to do on an entrepreneurial level. But I mean, I would have not had an as good of experience post college had I not gone out in the world before. You know. Because I think when you're in college, you kind of have this expectation of what you think it's like to get a job and like show up to work and how to interact with other people. And so like when you're in school, you're only around people your age and then your professors. And so when you go out in the real world and you see how they're doing things before it just prepares you to be a good employee. Really.
You know what's funny is I never really thought of that as like the age difference. Like you're working with kids, and suddenly now you're working with people who are like 20 years in the business, and they know a ton of stuff, and you're like literally the newest, freshest person out there.
And then kind of what it would be like to pay your dues along the way. So I know for entertainment specifically, that's a big factor in gaining respect and collaborating with the right people and everything. So it was a great experience. It was different from what I had done before. So
did working with Jason and me actually prepare you for anything?
It did. It was a really fun time. And I'll say this. I was so shy in college. And so looking back, I don't think at the time I thought I had the ability to be front and center at all in any aspect. And also entertainment was like too far different from where I came from, but I knew that I wanted to be in it. I just didn't know what kind of role I would be playing. And so when I took those internships, and especially the one with Dave Ramsey, being around really adventurous, fun people to work with brought that side out of like, oh, it's fine. Like, it's okay if you don't know everything. You're not supposed to.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time you don't know everything, and it's a lot of it's a lesson. And I think there's an element of if you do know everything, that I don't think you're pushing yourself hard enough. You're not trying to achieve something. So I always find every single project I go into, I try to add elements or components to it that push me to do something new and different. And it's what keeps it fresh. And I think what happens in an organization is when you have a person who refuses to grow or refuses to push themselves, you have all these energetic people who are pushing against them. Like they want to create something more, they want to push up, but then you have like this hard ceiling. And so instead of fostering an atmosphere where they can stay and grow and push the organization, that hard block, just those people, that steam has to go somewhere, and it leaves. That's why you have high turnover. That's why you have that stuff. So I think for me, having 20 plus years, you think, they're getting up in the thing. No, like, I feel like for me, I'm just starting. I really feel like, okay, I finally have a good base. Now I'm ready to push myself and grow infinitely. So, Cam, what was your first job that you did that you think that was like your entry level, pay your dues type
Like,
stuff?
I guess because I had been in kind of acting since I was a kid, but I think when I got into radio, that's kind of really when I
Mhm.
started over a little bit because I'd already experienced some of the Hollywood stuff and the singing stuff. I'd been in the music business and I got into radio and I had never done that before. So I did have to pay my dues and do internships and, around that time got into college, et cetera. So that was really where I learned a lot, especially for voiceover. Radio really, especially in a radio internship, it really opened my eyes because it was fun, right? Back in the day, the air staff would get into water gun fights with the sales staff, and it really opened my eyes as to how fun entertainment can be, and really also was a great training ground for voiceover because when you're in radio, you fly by the seat of your pants. You never know what's next, and a lot of people that get into voiceover who don't have a background in radio or live television, they are lost when they're not prepared to go into something. Whereas if you have a radio background, most of us can just ad lib and go with the flow. And so that's where I really learned to do that. It was foundational, I think, in my voiceover career.
Amazing. My first job, I remember in college, I started my own company and went out and got clients and I built a website and I connected people from all over the world. It was at the early stages of,
That was
remote work. And I
yahoo.com
remember
that he started. Yes. I remember
yeah,
Yahoo.
you remember Yahoo? Hey, I remember when Yahoo, I got my first email was Yahoo and I
Hotmail?
still
Do y'all
have it
remember
today,
Hotmail?
1995.
Yeah.
I remember a
Spam
friend of
Central.
mine. I had a Hotmail address and it was brand new. And I was calling a friend of mine, giving him the email address, and he was like, "Hotmail?" Just like, no,
You're like, don't open this
MAIL,
at work.
MAIL. So
Oh, Hotmail. That's me. Yeah. And then I remember I started working with the production company and I wanted to work because they'd done a lot of short films and features and stuff. And I wanted to get in there. And the very first job, I got $50. It was 15 hours of work as a PA and it was overnight and it was 6 below 0. It was out all night. So, and I did PA for a while. Like it was just on music videos, shows, and then I
mhm.
did BTS stuff. So that took me about a year of just maybe 2 years of just brutal, like $50 a thing. And my wife at the time's just like, how are we going to pay for this stuff? I'm like, I have to get into this thing in
Mhm.
order to start making money. Like it's not a graduate with my degree. Look, I'm a director and people hire me and pay me a fortune. It doesn't happen that way in this industry.
No.
Rare,
Right.
very, very rare. But no, you got to get out there and like if you have an expectation like the world's going to give you everything that you've had, and like I think school sets you up for disappointment because you have everything handed to you, you're taught where to go, you're led, you get your awards, you get your trophies, and the moment you graduate, you find out
It's
life is exactly the
literally,
opposite.
couldn't be more opposite.
No, so tell us how you got now. What did you do after you left there? Because your life
Honestly,
went it's
it's
like
just
Yeah.
all over.
completely
It's
different
continued to be all
direction
over the
from
place. And I've gotten to the point where I've just accepted it. And
Right.
there's a lot of beauty to it.
yes.
There's frustration, but then in hindsight, it's always worked out. Like God's always met me
Mm-hmm.
in the almost things are about to hit the fan. Like it,
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, post college, I was working for a nonprofit, which was like my last internship that I took after Ramsey. And at that internship, I started doing a little bit more on camera work. I did some red
Wait,
carpet
what
work.
made you finally say, yeah, I could do that? Like, did they tell you
I
you need
always
to be in
tell
front of camera?
people that opportunities kept popping up to where I had to choose it. Like I didn't have a choice. So there were like seasons of my life where I avoided it or I was like, oh, I don't know if I really do that. I don't want to. And then something would happen where someone would be like, oh, do you want to take over? The first time it happened was this was before I did my Dave Ramsey internship. I got asked to replace a friend of mine to do a red carpet for Dove Awards for this very obscure, I don't even think they were legit, but like kind of like it was a little sus. It was a little
Bob.
sus who was like where my
Yeah.
like interviews are going.
Craigslist, is that a really
It was
legitimate
just
place
this
to get
random
work?
dude lives in Minnesota and wanted to get red carpet content from the Dove Awards. So my friend had gotten this gig, and the day before, she was like, she's like, I can't do this gig, but I feel like you would want to do this. And deep down, I was like, yeah, I kind of want to do that, but like, I've never done that before. So I did the red carpet, didn't even know how I did, but knew that I loved it. And then fast forward, internships, then my first job, I started creating content for them after my boss said, hey, can you do this interview with Charles Kelly from Lady Antebellum? And after that, I started a podcast for them. I started a web series, and then I started doing more red carpet work. And then from then I was like, I got to figure out how to make this a thing for myself. But there were still times where I was working jobs in hospitality, freelance, and I was still doing like a little bit on camera, but I wasn't going like full send with it. So towards the end of 2019, I left my job in the music industry to just figure things out, try something different. I'd been working for that nonprofit for a very long time and was quite honestly burned out. And then I started freelancing for Morris Light and Sound when they were still a live production company. So I was producing a production podcast for them. And then beginning of 2020, I knew I wanted to start my own show, but I didn't know if I was ready. And I was going to call it the Libby Show, and without the O, by the way. I keep wanting to point this way. Without the O. And so I was just starting to connect with a couple of my PR connects that I got through my previous job. And then I was going to start out with freelance work just to take a little break from the 9-to-5, and met up with one of my friends who ended up doing the branding. So she's the one. Oh my God, I need to stop pointing. I'm just going to not point the rest.
How about we'll point for you?
You see the logo, so I'm not going to point to it anymore. But she created the branding for it. Our mutual friend, Ivory, wrote the theme songs, and we created the branding and the theme for the Libby O Show over the course of like 3 weeks.
That's cool.
Holy cow. How fun is that? Do you like doing that, didn't you? Did you have fun doing that process?
I felt like both of them were really, the girl that did all of my graphics willingly said, hey, I've never created for a show before. Would you like me to help you? And so between her and my friend Ivory, who created both theme songs, so like the front end, back end, I told them, I was like, I want it to be like big band, TV Land, Bewitched. I want it to all have that vibe.
How did she do it? Do it.
So while my friend Ivory was creating the song, she was like, I just felt like I needed to say Libby O, like full. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing. And then ever since then, and then the pandemic happened after I released my first episode.
Right.
And ever since then, it's just hustle, do whatever we can to eventually make this work. It's a full time.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was going into it, creating your own podcast? There's a lot of people I know that are doing podcasts now, and some people say, "Hey, if you didn't catch the front wave of podcasts, you're kind of podcasts are past." But I find myself watching podcasts all the time, particularly clips of podcasts, and even helping clients that are developing podcasts for their companies. Tell us a little bit about what do you think the benefits are of a podcast and some of the challenges to
and specifically a video podcast too, because that's a whole other aspect of it.
I would say, well, I'm a one-woman show besides my videographer.
Yeah,
so are we.
There you yeah.
Today I would say what majority-owned business. So
right, we're a majority-owned business. Entertainment, one entertainment dude's show is what you are.
We're the same person. We're just on different coasts.
Hey, Cam, put your face.
Hey,
hello.
How are you doing?
One of you is AI, the other is real.
Right.
That's right. We'll leave you to figure out which one.
One woman show, there's a benefit and there's also disadvantages to that. So I've always been pretty entrepreneurial in my,
pretty.
I thought you
and
were
then
just going to leave it
Entrepreneurial.
at pretty. I've always been pretty.
I've always been, uh,
Pretty.
but entrepreneurial in spirit. So independently liking to create. But I love to collaborate with people too. So I think that there are some people out there like in their own right, like to do everything on their own. I like a little bit of both. So for me, the benefit of being a one-woman show is knowing what I like and don't like about my brand. So I was editing my own show for like a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then some of it was obviously virtual through the pandemic. And then there were a couple of videographers here and there that would shoot the footage. A couple of them would edit it for me and I would share it. But I kind of set myself up to edit as much as I can on my own to save money, time, resources, and to know what I wanted. That, when I expanded my team, I knew what to tell them and I knew what to expect. And then I think also when it comes to preparing and then in post, the timing at which it's going to take someone to do their part of the job. So when I'm working with a videographer, for example, I'm not expecting him to get me the full episode tomorrow. Like I know there's steps he has to go through. So I feel like I understand their job better, being that I've done it myself.
Yep.
And I really appreciate anybody that I've worked with behind the scenes, because I can set myself up to obviously interview, but this show would not be what it is without working with other people and letting them be a part of it. So, I think, the other benefit is the videographer that I worked with late last year. Unfortunately, he moved to California. And so I don't get to work with him as much, but he was one of my favorite people. And he was the one that taught me some other just editing hacks. So I used to use Premiere religiously. I was like, I could have saved myself. I don't even want to think about it. Decades of time, money.
You probably even have more hair too than you do now.
Seriously, don't doubt that.
I used Premiere for a while. That was my problem.
And he was like, you should use DaVinci. It's a one-time payment and it saves you. I started using it. I was like, can I sue Premiere for taking my time? And my money? What is this? Crazy. Yep. So I think the benefit is obviously collaborating with others, learning from other people, and then also getting to experience someone believing in what you're creating. That's a huge blessing to have that validation of what you're creating has a potential to go somewhere, and I want to help you out, or I want to be a part of it. And so those are, I think, are the advantages. The disadvantages would be, of course, for me, financial resources. So I've been building this from the ground up. If I'm going to pitch it to anybody, I want it to be in the right hands. It's through the pandemic and post, I've had a lot of full-time, part-time gigs, 2 or 3 of them, one of recently, because of economical strains, I've been let go. So I've gone through 3 layoffs.
Wow.
Since 2020.
And then, people that don't know what it's like to build your own thing, they're like, go get a real job.
Yeah.
Go do this.
Yeah, that's horrible.
And so
you're
kind of navigating the blood, sweat, and tears of building something that may or may not work out. And then making sure you understand whose expectations that you're paying attention to. Are you paying attention to what God wants for your life, or are you listening to everyone else on what they think you should do? So, and then through, I think you had mentioned earlier on with the industry changing and with our world kind of going sideways, navigating that at the same time. How is my creativity going to be received if it's not subscribed to an agenda that's popular? Like if I'm not talking about certain things on my show, or if I'm not advocating for certain things, does that make me irrelevant? So.
Very good.
No, that's good. All good, really good questions. It's I think we've all had that, especially as creatives. And it's funny, I've got it right here. I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad recently, and one of the things I really like that he talked about, it's a great book. It's like, if you understand just what you're talking about, it's like it has the employees part, and then it has the self-employed, and then business and investor. and this side has all the money and this side does all the work, essentially. But the people who are customarily blue collar, that understand the job, that get a job, it's safe, it's secure, they trying to understand what it is to be an entrepreneur or a solo, trying to build your own business. You can't, they just can't, because like you go into uncertainty. That's all you face. It's literally, I don't know when I'm going to get paid. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know who's going to work with me. I don't know if it's going to work.
And then, I mean, I know for myself, there's been a handful. So I've worked in big tech before, having a regular job, like waiting for it to turn from contract to full-time. It never did because of the economy of the tech industry, just, taking a hard hit with everything, with not just the economy, but AI. There's a lot of things, but those are real jobs and they still failed me, or they still didn't stick around. So at the end of the day, I'm kind of like, I could do anything practical and it still wouldn't be practical. So I might as well.
It's like a husband. It's like a boyfriend who refuses to commit.
There's the argument that you're actually more secure going out and doing your own thing, because at least you're in control of, driving your own future.
Right. Hopefully.
So,
Well, the hardest part about working for anyone with me the hardest part about working for anyone else for me is always coming up against that ceiling. Like when the people are over, I'm always like, there's better ways to do it. Like, why are we doing it this way? Like we should do it something different. Like, and I get that limited thinking and I just can't. It drives me crazy. I leave companies once I hit that thing, and if it does not move, I'm like, I'm done. I'm out. Either like, let's find a way to change this, or I'm out. And I think that was one of the problems with me. Like, I can usually stay about a year to 2 years at a job before I'm like, I start to go crazy. I'm like, this is driving me crazy. I cannot stay here.
Well, and and I've had some really good bosses over the last couple years who, I mean, honestly, I was working part-time for Warby Parker customer service, which you get to know a lot. I mean, you get to know people, like strangers from everywhere when you're doing that job. Like at home with like the little headset.
Yeah.
People are like, my glasses are lost. Like, it's just like, like it's or
they're on your head.
Oh, want to talk and they're bored because it's a pandemic. Like, but I had a great boss there. I had a great boss at Dropbox when I worked there. I've had really great bosses, but at the end of the day, I've had some ones that micromanaged the living hell out of my life. So I think for me, and I'm trying to still work through that, is if I end up having to get another 9 to 5, that fear of like, is it going to be like that? Am I going to have the flexibility, and not like the flexibility of like getting free snacks every day or like going on like limitless PTO. Like, that's not, to me, flexibility. Flexibility is at 4 p.m. if I need to go run a quick errand, or if I get to do my creativity on the side and them not think that I'm going to leave immediately. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's fascinating. What do you think, Kim?
The hardest thing so far about starting your own show, and how have some of the lessons that you've learned through some of these other jobs applied to how you run your own show?
Think about that for a second. I think, besides financial, because I want whatever I put out there to get better and better.
Right.
So I can look back and there were certain footage of interviews in person. Like, I think it's easier too with what we have now, like StreamYard or Riverside. In my opinion, that makes virtual interviews look really great, really professional. In person, I don't want it to be iPhone footage. I'm sorry. I'm one of those. I love creating a really beautiful, something that I could eventually pitch and use later. To someone. I think that also managing my social media, working with the algorithm, putting the right content out there. Am I putting enough short form? Am I being on TikTok enough? Am I supposed to be an influencer? Am I supposed to sell clothes? Am I supposed to go viral tasting foods? Am I supposed to be just posting interview clips? Like, it's all these different things kind of like screaming at you of like, what do I focus on? So I think
Mm-hmm.
I've had to focus on, okay, what does Libby O like to share with the world?
Mm-hmm.
And as far as interviews go, or like, for example, I did a segment with a chef here in Nashville at like one of the hotels, and that was really fun. How am I staying true to my brand, but not trying to do everything? Because I can't do everything. So I focus primarily on video. So I have my podcast feed, for if people want to listen there. But I think for the most part, I've had to only focus on YouTube really because I'm just one person and I haven't gotten a team yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's a whole other side of it of I just got a manager 4 months ago who's helping
Nice.
me
Nice.
helping me with pitches for other on-camera work. And then there's a whole thing of like, oh, you might need an agent here or another agent there. And it's just like, it's a lot.
Like to juggle, right?
Yeah. How many agents do you have, Cam,
I've
for
got
your
several
audio?
all over
Like, you got
the US. I mean, I've probably got I think about 10 agents, a couple of main ones that I do a lot of work through, but it's kind of very important to do because they each have connections in different parts of the US. So more agents.
and
Right,
in different
exactly.
industries. One of them might be commercial, docs. One of them might be focused on film,
Exactly. So that's
TV.
definitely a big piece of the puzzle. So and
Yeah.
that's going to help you with your show too. Anything you do outside of the Libby O Show, as far as presenting or contacts you make through the agents.
And I think you had asked about how like previous jobs also contributed.
Right.
So my first job at my first music industry job, it was again a not-for-profit, so I had to wear multiple hats. I had to all of my jobs I've had to just do so many different things. So with this, it's not new to me. Like when people ask, how are you doing that plus this, but also that? It's like because I'm literally conditioned to do that. I'm bored if I'm not doing
Right.
5,000 things.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Mhm.
lent some help to how I've been building my own brand. And then I don't know. I mean, work. Lots of people say like, oh, okay. When I was working at Dropbox, people were saying, why are you working? What does working at Dropbox have to do with like what you want to do? I'm like, well, I'm getting to serve my skills in a different industry. I'm getting to know new people. A lot of my friends from there live from all over. One of them lives in Ireland, and when I went to London, we got to meet up and hang out.
Well, that's cool.
Like it's
That's
stuff
cool,
like
yep.
that. You get to know other people's lives. You get to contribute to something that's bigger than yourself. So I never thought that any jobs that I did aside from my show were just, didn't mean anything. And I think that
Right.
just makes you more well-rounded if you're able to do
True.
something besides what you're doing for yourself. So
Yeah. I run into an issue for me in terms of if I needed a job or if I had to go work for someone else, I always say like, hey, there's probably a few days I'm going to have to take off because if I get a production, I can make as much money in a 2-day shoot
Right.
as the entire month. I actually had a gig that one of the places I was looking at working, it was a week-long shoot I did. It was 5 months worth of work. So I said, can you, like, if that happens, I'm going to have to go do this. Like, are you cool with me going? Because if that happens, I have a choice and that's it. Like, I'm out. So, and that's why I can't, for me, I'm like, if I ever come to a place, I'm like, do I get a job? Do I not? I said, it all depends upon if they'll work around my schedule, because literally 1 to 2 days of shooting is the same as an entire
Right.
month or more, sometimes 2 months of work. Like,
no,
I can't
no,
turn
you
that down.
can't.
Sorry.
No.
And I get that,
No. So
So
Yeah. In
yeah.
this business, sometimes they'll feast or famine,
Yeah.
right?
And
So,
it's
yeah.
yeah. And right now it's super famine, and that's a good segue, which is very interesting because I just being out here in Hollywood, a lot of times, I mean, there's been so many things that have happened recently in the industry. We had the
Right.
obviously you had the writer strike, you had COVID hit, and then we had the
Mhm.
writer strike, and then we had the actors, director, everyone decided to strike simultaneously, and then the film industry is getting destroyed in terms of the theaters, people going out there, they're making content that isn't resonating with over half of America. And so you have a huge loss after loss. And then once Netflix had new companies came on, once Paramount started theirs, once Hulu's grew up even bigger, like all of their Disney started theirs, the model doesn't work for streamers. It doesn't work unless
And
you're
now
the
they're
only game
combining.
in town. So once you start adding them,
Yeah.
they're going to have to, and they're adding ads. So it's essentially going back to TV. But right now it's the biggest. I think it's the biggest dearth I've ever seen in Hollywood. Like I wonder what the condition of it is, because a lot of the companies, they're now leaving. They're building studios outside of the city. There's a lot of alt Hollywood type films that are actually winning awards and, taking first, second place in the theaters. So it's an exciting time to be alive as a filmmaker. But at the same time, the traditional way that you think, hey, I'm going to go make these pitches, the company's going to buy my film. It's not working.
It's kind of like
and
the new Wild West, actually.
There's no one.
It
a
is
little bit, right?
Well, and I'm not creating films, but I have people ask me all the time, even 2 days ago. So are you gonna, have you tried pitching your show? Have you tried? And I'm like, I don't know who to pitch this to.
Right.
Do I want it to be on a news station?
Yeah.
I don't know. What happens if I pitch it to a large Peacock or something? And I'm not speaking to what they would, what they would decide, but I don't want my content to be not wholesome. So
yeah.
What's
like,
it going
what
to
is
be?
it going to be? What's it going to be in there?
Right. I think that was part of the whole thing at Ramsey, because they're like the number one self-syndicated organization, right? The show. And the reason for that is they want control of their content. So actually having that thought in the back of your mind, especially this early, is a good thing, because there is a chance if you did sell this idea to somebody else that they would have a lot of say in what content you had on your show. So,
and they might also shelve it too, because some companies will take on a loss. So they might pitch you between a different bad time slot. They might disinvest in your program. They might even just shelve it. So some content we've seen, if people make an option on something or option to purchase, they'll usually have 1 to 2 years, and sometimes it'll just sit there on the shelf for 2 years, and then you got to go back and try to renegotiate. So even your show, they could technically say, yeah, we like it, we're going to option it, and then you're like, technically you can't make any more until they give the green light to go.
So now that we've given you this great news, Libby, so what?
Good news, Libby.
That's what I'm like, maybe
it'll be great.
I think there's a beauty in waiting, though. That's why it's scary. But and again, I'm not, when I said like Peacock or whatever, like it's just an example of another big company that a couple of years ago, I thought there was one way to do something, and now so much has changed, and now I'm kind of like, oh, like maybe. And I mean, I've met a lot of new friends in the last 2 years who are part of the Broadway scene. They're a part of film, TV. They're more so in the acting community, who moved from bigger cities, bigger corporations, because they were ousted for not getting vaccinated, or they didn't subscribe. So they're kind of rebuilding their own version of what they, want to put out in the world creatively, that doesn't have any sort of stipulation or boundaries or limits.
Yeah, and I think that's the beautiful part about what we do, is we get to decide what we want to say. We get to decide when we say it, when we post it, who comes on the show. If we want to do a show or don't want to do a show, it's like, and I think there's something about the freedom of being able to make those choices that enables you to remain open to possibilities. And I think that's something in the back of my mind. If I'm ever stuck at a place, my brain is always saying there's possibilities everywhere that are infinitely better than this one, and you're probably missing them because you're here. And I'm like, oh, and it drives me crazy. And that's often the case. Like, I found out things that passed by, and my other friends have gone on to do it. And I was like, one of my buds, they just bought a lake house. They bought a second house, and it was the same thing. I started working and he went on to do that thing. So I was like, in the back of my mind, there's always like, if I do this, am I missing an opportunity that would really be the thing I was looking for to open a new door? And so I'm continually torn. Always. I'm always torn. I'm always torn between doing something very, very well and trying to do it cheap or less, or trying to get the budget to close the deal. I'm always.
Tell us about
torn.
one of the most fun stories or segments that you've done, Libby.
just in general or on my
Just
show or
in general or on your show, anything that stood out in your career?
I've always loved red carpet has become one of my top favorite. You don't have time to think. You have
Right.
to be on the fly, you have to be social. Um, you're dealing with sometimes these celebrities that are nervous, they don't like red carpets. So I think there is this satisfaction when I can have a really comfortable conversation with someone in that space. Um, so I've gotten to interview some really great people I never thought I would have gotten to interview in those spaces. And then on my show, I would say, so I did a lifestyle segment at Hotel Frey here in Nashville, and it was really fun. We got to cook crab cakes in the kitchen and then talk about this guy's career as a chef. And he was really, charismatic and fun. And it was something a little bit different from a lot of my music interviews, which I've enjoyed, but it was kind of nice to kind of think, oh, what would it be like to host a show on something like Food Network or, I like those segments where we're actually doing an activity. I'm getting to step into someone else's world, and share that with my community. But I think outside of that, I would say getting to interview authors has been really fun for me. So I'm actually interviewing at the end of this month. I don't know when it'll come out, but I'm interviewing. So Armie Hammer's mom just put out a new book about her faith and how that's been a huge role in her life through her public divorce and all of these really prominent people that she's gotten to meet along the way. And then, of course, watching her son go through his fall and then his recovery. And so it's been really interesting reading that book. And I'm excited to talk to her about it and to talk about something that, is very intense, but someone that's, relied on faith through this entire time to be really at peace with whatever has happened in her life. So I'm getting to talk to people
That's
like
amazing.
that who I'd never thought I'd be able to sit down with, that are really interesting. And then, I'm trying to think who else. I've gotten into more of the MC space, so MCing live shows.
Okay.
I take improv, so I do improv comedy. So that's
important.
a whole thing
Nice.
that has completely been a game changer in what I do. So
yeah, you're thinking on the fly all the time,
Right.
and you've got to be able to play off other people. That's
and
the
then
beauty of
I
it.
think outside of my show, I was recently on set for some Great American Family films that were here. So getting to see one of my good friends do her acting thing in that, and to be a part of that, and to just see how that world works a little bit more has been really fun. So I've kind of
yeah, I love being on
like
set.
home,
It's my favorite
right?
place
Feels
to
like
be
home.
on earth. Like,
yeah.
So
So
I love it.
Yeah.
So, what is one of the challenges that you face when you're trying, when you are a one-woman show, trying to book guests and figuring out what to actually cover and how to stay relevant?
I do love the research part. So that part is fun for me because I usually go online, I watch the interviews that they've done, and I'm like, oh, is this the same thing that they've answered a couple times? How can I make that different? And how can I make this more of an experience hangout for them while they're spending their time, especially if they're bopping around the country and, they're talking to many people. How can it feel really relaxing? So I think that part I enjoy. It's right now the logistics of finding a space to record in person all the time. So I would say, if you watch my show, it's very mid-century. So anywhere I go, it's got to have a little bit of that. So looking for spaces, hoping that the stars align, that everyone's schedule matches up. I would say that's the most challenging thing. But preparing what to say, what to research, that part I enjoy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah, we have one of my favorite ones that Cam and I
Oh
did
yeah,
was
that
with
was
Mindy
great.
Sterling.
Oh,
She was we did all this research where Cam found like her dad singing a long time ago. He used to be on stage and performing, and we also took a reel of all of her old stuff that we could find everywhere off the web, cut together a whole trailer. And when she first dropped on, we played like, "Hey, our next guest, we're gonna give you a clue." Played this whole thing, and she's like, comes up, she's like, "You guys, oh my gosh." She's like, "How did you find all that?" And then it was really wild because she goes, "Yeah, my dad, he's a singer." And and Cam goes, "Bloop," and her dad comes up and starts singing. And she
that's
goes,
crazy.
Yeah,
it was all
research. So
research. We
I
just
love it.
went
I
back
love it
in
too. And
and
that
dove in.
it is interesting because no matter what you do, you were mentioning some of this, the previous jobs coming into play for what you're doing now. And I was for a long time in the world of news and investigative photojournalism, et cetera. And that really helped me with the research side of things. So I love researching as well. And so all those skills, no matter if you're in a place right now where you might not necessarily want to be,
Mhm.
take those skills with you because they can be adapted into any kind of career you want to have, creative or otherwise.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. So,
Yeah, I think every job that you do gives you,
Hmm.
if you take the right approach to it, it can give you something that you can use later. And when I first was in high school, I was cleaning toilets at a grocery store, and I was sweeping floors and things like this. And I think at that moment, I really realized that you can have a bad attitude
Hmm.
about this because it was like so disgusting. But at the same time, then I thought, or I can approach it from like a service idea, like I'm able to do something for someone. Like I know how I feel when I go into
Right.
a clean restroom at a place. It just makes me feel good. Like I'm happy I'm there. And if I go in and it's dirty, I'm like, oh, I don't even
yeah.
want to be at this place anymore. It's literally that, so even those things about, for me, really focusing on service, no matter where I am and what level, if I'm focusing on serving people, um,
Mhm.
that makes a difference in everything that you do. So no matter what you do and no matter where you are, what job you take, if you have a forward focused look on what can I learn today that I can use tomorrow to reach my goals. That's why I think having goals are so important. At least an idea of what you want to accomplish. And maybe it's a vague goal. I know I
Right.
want to be more. Okay, maybe that's your goal for now. Well, maybe you don't know what that looks like exactly, but if I know that, then I know that I need to be more myself. So I'm taking everything I can, like you said, from being at Dropbox. Why are you there?
And I'm
Because
paying,
I'm
you know
getting
Right.
what? I'm
tools.
paying my rent. Like,
Right.
life is not
Yep.
this like, oh, I'm just gonna do whatever I want and travel to Europe. I mean, I would love to travel to Europe every other whatever, but like that's not realistic. So I don't know. I mean, I've met a lot of really great people too through these random jobs. Like friends that I would have
Hmm.
never,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't regret having like a job in recruiting or a job as a customer service rep. Because
Yeah.
yeah,
No, they're they're
yeah.
they're great. They're great because I mean, for you, there's like, that's what I said for any creative out there. I always suggest you do get a job while you're working that just pays the bills. Like find something that covers this stuff, so then on your free time you can focus on moving your needle forward. And sometimes you have assets
Mhm.
to invest in what you need. I need to buy a new camera.
Costs a lot of money.
That costs money.
Right.
Where are you gonna get that money? So yeah, it's awesome. Well, I mean, entrepreneurship, I think at the core is an expression of the creative spirit that is inside us as people. And I think oftentimes the way companies and corporations are set up, you almost are called upon to set aside a lot of that creative part of you and just do the job. And to me,
Yeah.
that's a soul suck. I
Hmm.
feel if I'm in that kind of position too long, I feel like my soul is just getting sucked out of
Mm.
my nose through a straw. Like it's like, and I know it. And then the moment I have like that rush of like, I leave that thing and I don't know, the wind's blowing in your face, you leave the building, the sun is up. I don't know what's
There's a
next, but
freedom
I
in it.
feel
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Absolute freedom.
you're
There's
like,
kind
"Oh,
of a fear in the
this
back of
could
your
be
mind. You're like,
bad.
yeah, but
This could
this could
really
be
I
real
don't
bad.
I don't know what I'm gonna do in a month or however long." But there's always something inside of you like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'll be fine."
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm a testament to whatever 20 something years later. I've had many of those seasons where I didn't know. I don't know. And like you worry, like I'm going to die. There's nothing left for me. You're like, what's going to happen? How am I going to eat? I'm going to be homeless in a box forever. And then all of a sudden you get a phone call and then literally like this, I think in what we're doing, it
You
can
don't
change like
know.
that. You don't
Yeah.
know.
You don't know.
No. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can change for good or bad. Like this month, I had 4 commercials lined up, and then I was going to do some training for a company up in Canada for 5 days. And for me, that's great, and that's good income. But then
Mhm.
all of it canceled. And so when you're trying to do budgeting for being an independent contractor, I budget on what I have. So I've got the money that I have, I pay all my bills, and I do estimates based upon the jobs that are coming in. So usually if I have 4 or 5 jobs, I might have 1 cancel normally. Maybe 1, sometimes 2. Well, that still leaves me 3, and 3 will cover all my bills and do all this stuff.
Sometimes you have a great month, and then the companies you did the work for suddenly don't have a great month, and then they don't pay until, a while back or a
Well,
while
and that's why
later.
I think for me, there's 2 things. Like I usually get half up front, half on completion. Half of it, the half up front has to cover the cost of production. That includes all my crew, all my gear, everything. So that when that production is finished, I treat it as 2 separate jobs. There's the first job is production, and if you don't pay me enough to cover that production, I'm not going to do it. Like if it's not there 4 days before production minimum, I don't do it. And I don't care. It's like, it's beautiful, but because I've been burnt so many times, and this also for them, they have the same thing. How many times have I paid money and not gotten work for it, or the work was terrible? So this way it covers, at least they can see it. And then that way in the back end for all the production, you do a second. And it sucks if you direct and edit it and you're waiting for your payment and you have to wait until the edit is in before you can get paid, because sometimes that could be 30 days, 40 days, and then it takes them 20 to 30 days to pay. So there could be some real challenges if you are not consistent in your efforts to acquire new clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing too, right? Like finding new clients, that's a challenge everybody faces, right? You got to actually go out there and actively be working.
I had this one gig. It was like 2 years ago. This guy that would, like, the way he would pay me is to send me checks through FedEx. No.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, fine, but like, yeah, I just had to share that.
Well,
I
have to absolutely positively get it to you overnight. Right.
I like when my clients like, you have to have this tomorrow, first thing in the morning. I'm like, I'm okay with that, but isn't that going to cost more than the check you're writing me? I'm just checking.
Just crazy.
That's funny. So, Libby, what would you tell other aspiring Libby O's out there?
Aspiring Libby O's out there.
Aspiring Libby O's.
Ooh.
Libby O, is it Libby Osa?
No, but okay.
Are you related to Oreo? Sorry.
I mean, well, people may not know this. People may not know how Libby O came to be. So,
okay.
My like birth name is Olivia, but my dad started calling me Libby before I was born, like as just a nickname. And Libby doesn't even come from Olivia; it's from Elizabeth. So people always get confused that my name is not Libby. So without my dad just being like, pulling a whole like Bob Ross happy accident, like we wouldn't have a Libby O Show. So, and then Ulrich is the first letter of my last name. So
yes,
it's just easier to say O than Ulrich. So
yes, especially if you see it spelled out, you're like, Ulrich. You're like, no, I have nothing to do with Germany.
I have some Dutch
with the Third Reich,
German roots, but that's not really super relevant, So, I would say for those aspiring, I think something that you both said earlier about you can't wait on the world to just give you what you want. You have to know how to ask for what you want. So for myself, I've had to be confident in what I want in my career. And even if it means losing out on an opportunity or someone not understanding what I'm capable of, that brings more clarity. And then you do have other people that come along that know exactly what your brand is, what you're shooting for. And so I think if you're super confident in what you want and super clear on that, it's a lot easier to navigate the ups and downs if you're very firm in it. And then I think just kind of accepting whatever comes and doing your absolute best. I know that's like really cliche, but that's kind of all you can do.
Yeah.
Like,
that's awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's 100% true. Wow. Well, Libby, so where can people find you? What can they follow you? What do you have coming up that you'd like to post? And we can just share those links. So yes. So tell us where we can find you.
You can follow me on YouTube, The Libby O Show. I have it's a great theme song. I don't know if I'm ever going to change it.
Can you sing it? Can you sing it?
That's like the full, like, I'm not going to do like all of like the beat, but yeah.
That's like the full version. What's the short version?
That's
that's right. Maybe we need to outro with Libby's theme, and then that way people can hear it. I think
we should outro with Libby's theme. I think that's right. That's right.
Instagram, The Libby O Show. TikTok, The Libby O Show. TheLibbyOShow.com. Let's see. Most recent episodes, I interviewed this artist, Africa Brooke, who put out a novel called The Third Perspective. And so it talks about, how do you navigate difficult conversations? How do you navigate conflict? How do you know what you stand for and how to express it? So in this very divisive time, how do you communicate with people that don't think the same way? And how do you not self-censor? So that can be your art, what you say in conversations, how to be fully and authentically yourself, with the respect of, knowing when maybe not to speak or when to listen in certain situations. And then I also had an artist named Tiara Kennedy on my show as well. She's a country artist. She was on Beyonce's latest album. So it was very fun. Cool. And then what do I have coming out? I just finished creating my own ad spots for a wine company that sponsors my show. Cool. It's called Libby Wines. They reached out to me. Cool. They reached out to me and were like, we don't know what this means, but we're, coming to Nashville and we'd love to work with you. And they're a low calorie, low alcohol, vegan, bubbly wine. And they're all about, lightening up, having a good time without feeling terrible. So I just finished those ad spots and I'm putting those out in the next month and they're very fun.
That's strange because I don't ever remember you whining when you worked with us. So never. Yeah. Libby whines. Libby doesn't whine.
Libby doesn't.
Right?
No,
doesn't whine at all.
She doesn't.
So
yeah, Libby is chill.
That's true.
They chill as well. So Libby chills. Chill and whine.
That's happening. I think I don't know if I told you, Cam, but I was in a Dave Ramsey commercial recently.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Commercial. Yeah, you told me.
For every $1. And that was very fun to work with the team.
Awesome. Yes. Well, thank you so much for being on our show. We're excited that you joined us. It was wonderful. And look forward to following you and reconnecting and seeing where your incredible career goes because clearly you're talented and an awesome
I'm honored to be on this show and to connect with you all again. And it's been fun to relive.
You too. See, season 2 of Entertainment Dudes.
Wait, where are y'all on social media?
We're on.
I can follow you.
YouTube.com/entertainment-dudes, entertainmentdudes.com, on X, ENTMT dudes. They wouldn't let us use Entertainment Dudes. It was too long. So we're out there.
So
right?
Anywhere you have
any purveyor of fine podcasts.
Hey Cam, before we go, can you do your latest VO voice that you use?
Please.
Which one? Latest VO voice. Let me think here. Fiona. No, I said Fiona.
Did you say Yoda?
I'm melting. Yeah. So that's actually a little dog that I play on a cartoon I can't mention yet. So it'll be out shortly. So
that's so cool.
All right, thanks, Libby. On that note, thanks for joining us with Entertainment Dudes. We always have such a good time.
It's the Libby O Show.